Build compelling real-time apps quickly and scale them globally with the PubNub real-time network. Only PubNub delivers the core building blocks needed for any real-time application. Find out for yourself by signing up for free today. Visit pubnub.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Untether.tv. I'm your host and founder, Rob Woodbridge. We struggle with app discovery. I think it is the #1 challenge right now. If you're an app developer, if you're a company trying to create awareness for your application, it is just that. It is impossible with like 1.5 million applications out there across all these platforms. How do you rise to the top? It is a question that everybody is wading through right now, and we have somebody that may be able to shed a little bit of light on this subject right now. Fascinated by it because we believe, I think that we are kindred spirits here when I say that we believe that of every dollar that you spend in app development or anything around your app space, 99 cents of that dollar should be spent on awareness making and marketing, because it is one of the biggest challenges out there. So here today from somewhere in Eastern Europe, in the Ukraine, Art Dogtiev, who is the head of social media for ComboApp. Art, welcome. And did I get your name even? Dogtiev, did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Rob. Yeah, it was good.
Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. So you're in the Ukraine. Tell me before we even begin, what's the ecosystem? What's the mobile space like in the Ukraine? Is it software development companies? Is it app companies? Is it service companies? What is it like there for you guys?
You know, for the most part, it's about companies who create apps, and more specifically games. If you can look up to the App Store top charts for the last 5-6 months, I bet you will find several games which were developed here. They were marketed in different places, but they were coded and designed here, right in Ukraine, not specifically in the city where I'm sitting right now, but just in general in Ukraine. Plus, we are aware of several companies who do marketing for apps, but they are in the minority. The bulk part of app development ecosystem here in Ukraine is dedicated to development, and that's how it goes.
Is it outsourced development from companies that are doing it in North America, or is it like development partners, or are these actual companies that are building their own product?
You know, both. It's a mix. You know, it started as a pure outsourcing, but these days we can see standalone companies who create apps here, and just like any other part of the world, like in Spain, China, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I think that's the natural evolution, isn't it? From a company, like you get your opportunity because of less expensive labor. But then, you know, all that does is showcase the talent that you have in your country and your cities. And then all of a sudden it's, you know, you got the entrepreneurial fire that's lit as a result of probably the mobile space, right?
Right.
So tell me about ComboApp. I'm very interested in what you guys do. You're a PR company that helps create awareness for mobile applications.
Okay, let me give you just a little bit of our history.
Sure.
Actually, we started in spring 2010. We were a small team of people who basically we were doing marketing for our parent company, which was an app development at the time. They started as a software development company, and then, you know, when the App Store happened, when the iPhone was introduced, they jumped into the bandwagon of app development, and at some point they definitely need the team of people who could help the company to market their apps. So that's what we've been doing like for roughly like 5-6 months. And then in spring 2010, we saw, you know, like when you're doing your marketing on your own for apps, so your company is doing, and you can see the picture that basically at that point there was no 2-3 companies were involved in app marketing at that time, and we saw, why not? Let's do it on our own. Let's try let's see if we can do it better. So we started, with small things. Over this 3 years period, we tried many techniques. We learned certainly. At this point, what we do, we can roughly divide between PR, media buying, mobile ad networks, and social media promotion. These like 4 parts of what we're doing.
And is ComboApp's still a subsidiary of a larger company, or did you guys spin it out, or?
No, it's kind of we're heading to the direction where we're going to be a separate company.
Okay.
But not yet. We're getting close.
Okay. And so you're part of this founding team, I would say?
Yeah, I'm kind of a dinosaur. I was from the beginning of the company.
A dinosaur from 3 years ago.
Yeah. It's mobile era. We are things move pretty fast.
Well, and it has. And I mean, what you've seen over the last 3 years has been amazing, right? So, the opportunity around mobile applications has emerged quite amazingly since maybe 2008, 2009. But we've seen that so many companies that I deal with, when they build out an application, their biggest challenge, and it's the thing that they think of last, is the marketing aspect, is the awareness making aspect of the app, right? Is that they get down the path and they're maybe 4 weeks away or 3 weeks away from launch, or they're about to launch, and then they start to think about the marketing aspect of this. Because I think that early days, I've interviewed a bunch of guys for Untether.tv here, that just got in at the right time, like Bump, which was a unique idea, a unique app, but they were one of the first applications into the App Store when the iPhone App Store launched, and all of a sudden they've been carried through as one of the top 10 applications. And if you're not in that elite, the biggest challenge is creating awareness. And if you don't have oodles of cash, creating awareness is difficult. So we're going to talk about this. I'm very interested in understanding your launch process around what you guys do, how you help your customers actually create awareness, and then bring in some case studies as we go through this process. Are you up for doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start with saying that we as a company, and me personally, what do we think about the App Store? It's the repository of ideas. It starts with hardware, roughly each 2 years, Apple brings new features to the iPhone, and then you can see all Android phones were getting their features on an even faster pace. And once you have new features, hardware features available, this is the point when you can add new software features. And it all begins with what specific thing this new app brings to the market. The good case, when we are approached by a company who knows it itself, who knows what kind of features they want to bring to the market. Do
a lot of companies know? Or here in North America, we're seeing so many Me Too applications. We're just like Instagram, but this, or we're just like this, and it kind of drives me crazy.
Let me qualify one thing. Just clarify that if I can divide the whole market on which we operate. US, Canada, and Asia would be like 90%, and only 10% would go to Ukraine and Russia. Naturally, we tend to go to the bigger portion of the market. Like I've said, having 2 offices here in Ukraine and States, we can cover both Japan, China, Australia, and US, Canada from the other part. And the majority of case studies which we publish on our website, you can find them on SlideShare. They are about companies from US where was I? Let me give you an example of how things start when we're approached by a company with specific app.
Please.
Certainly we're asking to give us a picture by filling up a marketing brief. What you guys want to bring on the market with this app? Do you have a specific budget? Do you see personally your competitors, and what things your app will do better than their apps do? What is your time frame? It's pointless to try to launch an app to give a certain level of visibility and then just let it go. it's pointless. You're just spending your money. You're wasting your money. That's what we say our clients.
What you're talking about there is that like the launch is not the end game. So what's your continuity for the application?
Things are just beginning. You should have the roadmap of updates. It's a good thing. It's impossible to implement whole ideas in your application right at the beginning, because once your app on the market and you're promoting, you're getting feedback from your users. You're getting advice what things you should change. So these are the things you're going to put in your next updates. And with every update, you should be able to have a certain marketing step for this update to give another boost to your app. It's unproductive to give it a high start, then let it fall like somewhere into oblivion, and then try to rise back. I'm sorry to say, but there's a pretty much defined financial level for an app to go to market, unless you're trying to address a really narrow niche where you shouldn't expect a big competition. You shouldn't expect a lot of marketing expense. If it's about gaming, it's a crazy world.
What is that? What is that level? I mean, what should people be expected to spend? I mean, it's such an interesting concept, right? Is that there is a spend on the app development, whether it's a game or a traditional application, and then there's a cost associated with that: design, development, implementation, cross-platform challenges as well. There's a cost. And people understand that cost because it's a labor cost, and then but there's an additional cost which we're talking about here is the marketing layer. So if people are saying like, here's my budget, you know, what is a good budget to be able to launch a game and build and launch a game effectively?
Okay, it starts from 10, 15K. This is the amount of money you are going to spend within several weeks. At launch. At launch,
yeah.
At launch. Unfortunately, you know, I wish I could say way less, but this is the nature of the game. Having so much, like, things are not getting better because we're having more and more apps each day as we speak right now. Like a couple of thousand apps are being released daily, like on the App Store and iOS and Google Play, and. So the day you begin your app development and you creating your marketing plan, unfortunately, we see the picture when, to put it mildly, not every app developer think of app development as a real business.
Yeah.
You know, it's that myth that was originated a few years ago when things were really easier to handle. It's like it's an adventure. It's not a real business. You can do it either, you know,
in your basement, part-time,
in your garage.
Yeah.
No, those all good times are gone. These days, if you don't have money on your own, you should look for an investor, and you should be able to provide good marketing plan to an investor to justify the money they're going to put in your app marketing and development. And so, like I've said, 10, 15K, this is the starting point for games.
What about outside of the gaming space? So games are tough, but I mean, there's got to be other niches that are a little bit easier.
I would say that productivity, utilities,
they must be up there as well because it's so competitive in that. Like to-do, task list, all those things. That's all I see on the app stores.
Yeah, these are, you know, it's the marketing expenses are connected with the number of apps in a specific category, with the number of competition, and you're competing with the marketing budgets of other app developers in your niche. You have no idea how much money they're going to spend the next day, so the next weekend, etc. So I think outside of mobile apps and mobile games madness, it's like 5-7K to begin, and it's just a ballpark. It's not a concrete number. It's case by case.
Yeah. Yep.
And at some point, you're like, if you're came up with a really good idea, and it's not like it's not only your gut feeling, but you see that you're going to the market with a new idea that nobody else do as well as you are, and it means that your marketing expenses can be less, but you should be ready for worse. That's how it goes.
I see all these. It's always interesting to me what applications in a competitive arena rise to the top, because we all know some applications that we use every day that somehow they came across our path and we downloaded and used versus other ones, right? There's a plethora now of video applications because of what Vine and Instagram have done, but and then there's a whole bunch of new email clients, productivity and email clients that are out there that all kind of descended at the same time, and we stick with one. There's a whole bunch of calendaring applications and smart assistant applications that are out there all at the same time. So, they're relatively small pools of applications, but there are many of them, and somehow they've attracted us. So, walk through that, because you're right. You need a business plan. You need to understand what's unique about it. You need to understand how to market it, and I want to talk to you about that. But also, you have to, at the same time you're building your application, kind of take a survey of what's out there and find your spot that is unique, as you said. But this is not easy. This is not easy at all.
Yes, that's it's one of the major components of your success. If you can manage to find this good spot, what is the app name I'm thinking about? To-do app, which gives you pinch and zoom with different colors. Clear app.
Yeah, yep.
That's like Clear. On one hand, you can read a lot of good reviews on the App Store from actual app users. On the other hand, you can read on blogosphere, things like, okay, the hype about the app is over. So what is the aftermath? Does the app work for people? But apparently, as we still see the app on the top, it does work for people. And I think it's a good strategy to be kind of Apple. Think about things you not only the things you should put into the app, but the things you shouldn't. I know it's kind of a really broad approach, but it's general strategy. I just can't think of on the spot about the specific steps in this kind of area for app developer. But think first about the problems you're going to solve with this app.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, if you go through all the apps from other developers, you can find the weak spots in all of them. Try to attack those weak spots and do better with your app. Be ready to begin from scratch on the version 0.2. It may happen,
it's so true. Don't get tied to your original idea, right?
Be flexible.
Well, it's perfect. A perfect example is Clear, because Clear wanted to simplify to-do list making, right? And the complexity around to-do apps are incredible, right? And like OmniFocus, for example, it's a very complex app. And for a guy like me who just wants to get something written down in an application so that it's out of my head, this was a really amazing thing. Now, they sold it as, listen, you only have, I think it was 140 characters, like a tweet, to be able to do your entire to-do list. If it doesn't fit into there, it's too long for to-do. And that's what turned me off of Clear, is like, don't constrain it. But that was also their biggest selling point, the simplicity of a to-do list. Now, they went out, they launched, they got feedback, and now guess what? You can have unlimited lengths of to-do lists in your to-do. You don't have to limit it to 140 characters. I'm back to using that application. So you're right, is that what might be your selling proposition to begin with, all of a sudden, for them, it was like, okay, now we got the user base. They're telling us that we need this. Let's go and amend it. And you can't be too tied to that one idea, right?
Right, absolutely. And let's wait for iOS 7 just in a few weeks. We'll see. The game will change again.
Yes, yeah. It always does.
Yeah, my suspicion that our iOS 7 may go live just on September 10, next to iPhone 5S, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this will be the next game changer. People will have to, to catch up with the default apps again and
Yes.
see how they can do better.
Do you think
It's
that's
kind of a next push.
But like, do you think that that's the that's the there's opportunity. Like when you think about Apple, and you think about any of these platforms at the moment of launch for a new operating system, a new device, is that really the most opportune time to actually push out an application because the central focus is on that launch?
I think, well, certainly from the standpoint of being in central focus in media, a week later, 2 weeks later, after the iOS 7 will be released, people will still be talking about, in a blogosphere in media. So,
you don't want to wait once a year to launch your app.
No. It's it's too harsh for your business to wait
Yes.
to wait that long. You're gonna broke. What I think is that well, definitely. Let's put it this way. We know that the iOS 7 bring new layout for the App Store app once again.
Yep.
From what I can see, they're gonna revert the card thing that they did in iOS 6 because the feedback wasn't that great. So they're getting back the original idea in iOS 5, probably with a different twist.
Yep.
And we know that every change in the app, either for iOS, either for iPhone or iPad, makes difference for an application to get less or more visibility, to be less or more discoverable on the App Store. And I wish that those guys they bought in Chomp company, they got to do something with them because the acquisition took place, I guess,
almost 2 years ago.
Almost two years ago, and it's like we haven't seen any real change on the App Store. Like those guys are working on something, but we have no idea what it is. Why the app discoverability isn't that issue as it was 2 years ago, but it's getting worse and worse. Yeah. Why isn't it getting better?
It's funny because that's Chomp, the company that I actually interviewed the founder long before they were acquired, and they were changing the game on discovering applications. Mm-hmm. But do you think that it's because, we're conditioned in a desktop world in North America to go to Google or go to your favorite search engine and search for terms that you're looking for and get a bunch of results. Now, the App Store, most of them are, we're influenced by the top lists, like the top 25 grossing, the top newest, the most hottest, whatever it might, most hottest, the hottest, and the new and notable, all these lists that they have. And for me, search is secondary only if I'm looking for an app that I've heard of in my periphery. So do you think that the way that we use the app stores, it's way different from the way that we use search engines? So discoverability is a big challenge because we're not using the search in the app stores.
That is correct. And the thing about the search, if people are getting used to using, I can't think of people who are not getting used to using Google on a daily basis. And at this point, they are, years and years ago, they were using, single search queries, single word search queries. Now these days, you're pretty safe using 2 or 3 words, pretty much, grammatically correct expression to get a good result. Try to do the same on the App Store. You're going to get 0.
Yeah.
Each time.
Yeah.
So you got to break your search to simple terms and like to reverse the history to, 1 to a word that will probably give you an accurate result. And, I can give you on the spot a good example. I was fighting with a mouse which broke into my house a few days ago, and I was looking for an app that repel mouses.
Really?
And,
there is such a thing?
There are apps that do this, and the problem was the first app I managed to find right on the spot wasn't doing a really good job. It was kind of useless. You're expecting the result, and nothing happens. So anyway, in 2 days, I found the other app, but it was really hard. I tried 2 different search queries. I I couldn't believe that there was only one app on the market. Finally, I found the other one, which did work pretty well. Especially if you're using your speakers, you know, it works awesome. Just plug your app on your speakers, and they're
it sends
all
like
done.
it sends like a noise that repels them.
Yeah, it's a noise, but you actually you can hear it noise. It goes above 20 kilohertz.
Okay.
So it doesn't hurt your ears, but it does hurt the ears of your mountains in your house. And this is just a concrete example of how I was trying to use. You know, this is not kind of an app you would expect to find on the top chart, not even near. So this was the case when you had to use the search. So that's.
And I can imagine you're typing it in, and you must be getting like games and all these different like applications that classify mice or classify animals, and then you're very frustrating.
It is frustrating, and well, it's.
See, I would never have even thought, Art. I would never have even thought to look on the App Store for an application that does that. Like that's what's fascinating about it, is that it shows you this long tail of opportunity of these applications that are just that I would never even consider. Right? I'm the guy who'll go out and get poison or like a trap or a humane trap and go out and basically fill every crack in my house so that they can't get in, and then sit there with on watch waiting for them to come in. But you're telling me that all I have to do is I wouldn't even have thought, like, there's no category for like mice traps or mouse traps on the App Store.
I don't remember, but probably it is in utilities, I guess. Yeah, certainly it's not productivity.
No, it's not. No, definitely not.
Well, okay.
But so there's got to be this process here, right? Like, there's what I call there's a template that everybody seems to be using around the world for app marketing, right? Which is a couple of weeks before, a couple of months before, you put up a website, a one-page website, you get a little trailer, you do a sign-up, you set up a Facebook fan page, you set up a Twitter account, you start to kind of interact with your, building that audience, you pay for a couple of Facebook ads in order to be able to drive people to like your page. You do all of these things, and then the day of the launch, before that, you're approaching press, media, try to get onto TechCrunch if it's a unique idea, and then you go through this process in your launch, and then you go through this jubilation on launch day where you might get a little bit of lift, and then the next day is like this plummet back down to zero. You're a nobody. You go through this trough of despair, and then all of a sudden you're back to that point where 2 days after your launch, after maybe 16 or 18 weeks of development, you are at this point where you haven't moved the needle with your application. I've met people who have gone through that process and have had 0 downloads on the day of the launch. So there's got to be, it seems like everybody's doing that. So is that the right approach? If you were to do this, if you looked at your clients and said, what are the 5 steps that you need to take, that you should be doing? And you don't have to get into specifics, but 5 steps that people should be doing to launch appropriately, to get their app so that at least the launch is good and then there's room for growth beyond launch.
Okay. Let's go with step number 1. Your app marketing copy. The consistency of every channel you're creating. You're pretty much correct. It's Facebook, Twitter. Think of Pinterest. It's a really great channel to visually connect you and your prospect users. Think of really good short video trailer. It's kind of you should pay arm like a foot for the Twitter ad trailer you could find on YouTube, like really simple one, like a cartoon. I know the guys who are doing these kind of trailers, they're pretty expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you have a budget to do a clip like this, it's definitely will pay off. But if you're not, approach the companies who are kind of in the middle and will create you a good like the video ad that will expose the essence of your app. So once you're and it goes simultaneously, marketing plan, preparing your app marketing copy, and you should approach media before. The problem with the approaching bloggers and TechCrunch, including, people they don't do their homework. They should know their writers, not in person, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
But know what they're writing about, know their topics, know what stuff they like and the stuff they hate. Don't try to basically sell them an app. They just it's not their thing.
Yeah.
Look on the blogs, their previous posts, what kind of apps they were covering previously. You will see what stuff they like, and the stuff with which you approach the bloggers. Your chances are bigger because they write about apps which are similar to your one. And you should begin certainly in advance, because they're real human beings. They have their lives. They have their work schedule. They publish posts. They know what they're going to post the next Friday, the next Thursday. So, and what is a good reason they should change their schedule because of you? In a sense, it's a good thing if you can, prove them that you are the reason to change their schedule. But you need time. That's what I'm saying.
What about I mean, it's great advice, simply because you're right. Is that don't expect them to move heaven and earth a week before your launch based on your schedule, right? Be a part of their schedule. Understand what they're interested in, and understand what would make their jobs much easier. And then if you fit that, then pitch them. Don't ruin that relationship. But back to Facebook, you said Pinterest, which is really interesting, and Twitter. Is that what kind of content should be being put there? So you've got, say you do a video, you do a trailer for your application, whether it's a productivity app, or it's a mouse trap, or a mouse repellent app, or it's a game. So you do that, but then when should you start using the social side before your launch? Is it 4 weeks before? Is it 16 weeks before? And then what kind of content should you be putting on these things?
Okay, let's take the number one, Facebook. The time frame will be 2, 3, 4 weeks before the launch. This is the moment when you start posting things on your fan page. Think about the content flow, which is divided into several things. Number one, you're not going to talk about your app all the time. I can give you the other example. I can think of good examples for a mouse repeller, but I can think of good examples for productivity app, note-taking app. So what you do, you can go to iTunes U directory, which has the great number of video podcasts from different universities about how taking notes. You can grab those videos and post them on your fan page next to specific posts about your app, next to some things, personal things about your team, some sketch from pre-release point when your app wasn't finished. This is kind of content you're going to put in your Facebook, and even if we're talking about the moment before launch, you can postpone all posts about the app specifically, reviews both from blogs and from the App Store. Before that moment, you can fill your app with relevant content. App doesn't exist in a vacuum. So this strategy goes to Twitter as well, but just in a really shorter content frame. And on Pinterest, it's a visual channel. You can, it can be things relevant visually to your app, like doodles, drawings, stuff that people do. Like you're creating an app which is a tool. You can talk about the content on Pinterest, and this kind of stuff you can. If you take this approach on every social media channel you're going to create before app will be launched, it's good for you. You're on the right path.
Let me ask a question about that. Is that, well, maybe two questions. One of them is, are you targeting who are you targeting with this content, right? So is it the potential user? Is it other developers? Are you trying to show them how you built, your blueprints? Who should you be targeting with that content?
With that content, you definitely target your users.
Okay.
And the way to target your users to connect your, Facebook ads, it's not an original idea. You have to be really careful, really creative with setting the right audience for your Facebook ads. You have to be creative with graphics for your ads, with every piece, plus the time of posting, the amount of content you're going to put in your page. You're gonna make sure that it's not a desert and it's not Niagara Falls water flow in terms of how much content you're going to put on your fan page. You're plugging your post to people's walls on Facebook.
You don't want to turn them. You don't want to have them hide it.
Yeah, definitely. And basically, there's no guarantee that all of your fans, all of your followers will be your app users. But a certain amount of them will, and this is your goal. And be really careful and check who became your friends, your followers on Twitter, and who are giving likes to you on your fan page on Facebook.
Okay.
There was an article from Guardian. They conducted an experiment, and basically they found the farms. In good old days, there were techniques of click frauds on Google. So, and unfortunately, every good idea has its abusers. And these days, there are companies who can deliver you 1,000 likes for $5 for people who just don't care about your app and your ideas and your posts. So be careful what people are giving you like. Read their walls. Make sure you know who they are.
Yeah. And is it I've heard this theory around that. I mean, that's great advice. You can go to Fiverr.com and pay $5 and get 1,000 likes. And an early company that I worked with very early on, maybe 3.5 years ago, that's what they did with their game. And then, it didn't work. It didn't work. And you spend most of your time weeding out the people who are just, who are bots or who don't care.
Right.
Now, I've heard, a theory about going after a single channel, a sole channel, like just owning one channel, like just picking Facebook and then doing Facebook well, or picking Twitter or picking Pinterest. Is there a, what should you do first? Should you focus on a single channel if you're a small team, or should you try to do this everywhere and spread yourself a little bit thin?
Well, it depends how many people you can allocate to this activity. If you're basically a one-person show and you know that there are still only 24 hours in a day, and even though you would like to have more, but you have to be realistic how much time you can allocate to this kind of activity. This is something you cannot outsource your friends or somebody. Either you're doing it on your own, and in this case, you're correct. You should concentrate your efforts to one single channel, which it will require certain brainstorming to see which one will work for your app, like a medium to connect your app and its potential users. If you have a team of people, and you can basically set several number of tasks, you have the calendar, specific calendar and Google Calendar for posting on the different channels, and the overall strategy, and you see the progress. In this case, you can go with several channels. But if you're just one person, just stick to one channel.
So that's social. That's a first step, right? So what else is there that can kind of help in building anticipation? Because I think that's what it is. You're building anticipation for the rollout. What's something else that people can use? You still can go to forums to announce your game. Touch Arcade forums is the king of the iOS forums, and specifically games forums. But does that still work? I mean, if you go in there cold without an account and you're like, "Hey, first post, come get my game," they might frown on that, right?
Well, if just make sure that you create a credible account. Just don't leave a blank profile.
Yeah.
put a certain information about you as a company, just show them that you're legitimate, they should trust you. And don't even try to create fake accounts and post on your own posts. Don't do this. You're going to be caught, and it's going to shoot at yourself, shoot at you in less than a week, in a few days.
Yeah.
Don't do this. It's, what you may expect, it's kind of several hundred views after a week on average. It's just +1 technique. The better way to create anticipation is post something about your app on social media channels. Either one, if, like I've said, you don't have resources to handle more, or several. And okay, we've covered the copy, social media, approaching bloggers,
Yep.
which is number 3, and we're left with 2 more points. The 4th one will be just to avoid this awful situation when you got your lunch moment, you're checking App Annie or checking App Annie, iTunes Connect, and you're seeing like you're going up, then you're going down, and your nightmare begins. You should be ready to work with the mobile ad networks. Think of it think of it as like a military operation. It should be really time scheduled in a way so definitely you can set a day in iTunes Connect when your app will be released on the App Store. If you find a good company which is credible, and you can build the campaign and here's the advice. It's wiser to do not put all eggs in one basket and work with at least 2 or 3 companies with not a lot of, there are certain statistics available on the internet which will show you how much downloads your application should generate to stay on the top. It's not math, it's not precise number, but it's just an average figure for you to see how much downloads you should get for your app to be visible. What you do here, you are extending the moment of visibility on the App Store. You are extending your chances for your application to be connected with the audience. For different reasons, if it's too short, you may miss your audience because some, mundane, boring reason. People who can be your app users may be just getting busy with somewhere else. You need to give your app more time to stay on the top.
That's the ultimate goal here, isn't it? Just to be visible longer, because there's a natural fall off at the end, right?
Yeah.
And all you're trying to do is extend that a little bit so you get in front of more users.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately, if it's really simple. If you want to stay longer visible, you should allocate more marketing budget to work with mobile ad networks to stay longer visible.
So how would you use the ad networks? This is about being an ad in somebody else's application. I mean, what's some advice there?
The advice will be to work with first of all, with the industry leaders like Fixu, Tapjoy, to really work through the campaign before it will go launch. And basically what you will need, the set of banners, you will be visible in other apps relevant to your app, which is one of the most important points. Like otherwise your chances to be to get downloads will be pretty miserable. I don't know. It's like having a game app ad in utility or vice versa. As long as App Store works like it works now, I'm sorry to say, but this is the only strategy we can utilize. We can drive traffic from outside working with Facebook, Facebook mobile ad network, Facebook mobile app install ads, which are really, really effective at this point. And
those are part of the stream, right? Those aren't ads off to the right. Those are part of the actual stream.
Part of the stream, and they do work on your iPhone. Yeah. That's why they're so effective.
Yeah.
And there's actually quite curious thing. This February, when I was on App Worlds in this San Francisco, I asked the guy from Twitter, I guess it was Sean Cook, if you guys are going to launch the similar platform for app developers.
Yep.
On which he said, no comments on future plans, but I like your idea. So I have a suspicion that Twitter will launch eventually their own SDK. SDK, for people who don't know what it is, it's just a piece of code to be able to track your download from a certain device and send it back to your dashboard, the online system, which will tell you how many downloads your app is getting for a specific period of time. So Facebook is doing it pretty well. There are more than a few thousand developers have joined the program. That this are the official numbers from Facebook, which they presented a couple of months ago. And it still does work. And I have a suspicion that it may not work as well in a few months, in a few years, probably. Right. Because people will treat those, like, right now, they're not.
They're a novelty right now, right?
They're a novelty, like the original banner, like in '90s. You know, they still have this moment. But they're quite effective right now and cost effective.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing because you're right. The novelty will wear off on all of these, and then it'll be onto that next thing that drives awareness. And even like I just went through I studied Facebook's results and Facebook, even their click-through rates or their effective rates for those ads, they're exponentially. I think they're 20 times greater than the side ads or anything along those lines. But they're still kind of less than 3%. Of click-through rates, when it comes to your targeted audience. So, it's all perspective, is that even if we consider 3% a great click-through rate, like that's the perspective you've got to get going into this, is that it's very difficult to generate awareness with your application by just using these, or in isolation, I suppose. You have to attack it on multiple fronts.
Right. Even Facebook is following this, the holy grail of marketing, to connect exactly people you would like to. Even Facebook cannot do this as good as it would like.
Yeah, you'd think that they would, because of their profiling. Is that all I wanted is every single person that I put it in front of, and it might only be 10 people, but each one of those 10 go and download the game, right, or go and download the application, because they have that kind of hyper targeting. But they don't. Like 97% of the people don't do anything, don't action on this. So it is a big challenge.
It is a big challenge. It's just more room to develop the platform. And the number 5 will be relative to what I've said in the beginning about media. It's pretty much impossible to create the bulk of app reviews right at the app's launch. You're getting attention of several people, and then the other bloggers will, somebody got to be first with the app review. You can see this for many things in the blogosphere. Other ones will elaborate, will get their spin, and the ball will begin rolling. So this will be the point number 5. Just track your don't just pitch your app to the blogger and forget about him. Keep the conversation. See what he's reading, what he's writing on his blog, what he's writing as a guest blogger on different blogs, and make sure you see you have the log of all app reviews you're getting, and so you can see the pattern, which kind of blogs are more effective for your app. And just to continue to develop it, make it better.
Well, I think it's most importantly there is that, especially when you're approaching media, like I get approached. I don't even consider myself media, but some people do, which is weird. But it's when you approach me even with it, is that like, I'm not going to download your app, I'm not going to review your app, I don't do reviews. I mean, for one thing, understand what I do, which is one of those things, is that even I get approached through LinkedIn, through Facebook, and through all these other different mediums, email and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But notice that I have never done a single app review ever, not one time. I've done, 475 interviews. I've done 280 podcasts. I've written 1,000 blog posts, and 0
Amazing.
are reviews. So when you do that, it just says to me that, look, you're not doing your research. Don't do it. Now, if you said, listen, I have Rob, if you approached me and said, listen, Rob, we have a very unique component that is that, like a story. That this is how we marketed the application. This is how we built it. This is how we determined who our audience was. And I think that it's relevant so that, listen, can I come on and tell your people, tell your audience about how we did that? And then, oh, by the way, I'd like, you can mention your application. This is something that is a way to come in and talk to me, right? Is that I'm interested in those stories. I don't care about reviewing your application, and I never will, right? So don't do that. And just be relevant to me.
It doesn't fit in what you're doing.
Doesn't at all.
Absolutely.
I'm not even sure what I'm doing, so it's, don't ask me about that. All right, those are great, 5 great tips. I got to ask about the launch itself. Now, I've heard a theory, and this is, we'll end this at this, but I'd love to have you back on, Art, because I think that we can learn a lot from what you're doing, and especially when you start to develop case studies. I'd love to bring those to the people who are listening and watching. But, I've heard about this concentrated launch burst, right, which is you're building anticipation if you're doing it properly, like 2, 3, 4 weeks out. And you're communicating to your audience, you're buying some ads, you're doing some stuff, you're testing, which is, I think launch is a lot about testing. But, I've heard this theory about concentrating your spend into like 4 days around the launch, right? So take that $7,000 or that $5,000 or however much you can. And during that period of launch, like 1, 2, 3, 4 days of launch, because you're trying to create enough momentum to drive awareness to propel the application into the new and notable or the what's new application in Google Play, and then hope that you get to kind of rise up into the what's hot category and then extend that reach a little bit more. Is there anything you can talk about that? Is that the actual day of launch strategy?
Certainly there's a direct correlation between the apps, which you can see in what's hot category on the App Store, and their position on their top 3 or top 8 chart. And the thing is that is a valid theory, and the theory says that, like I've said, you need to get the certain amount of downloads in the period when your app is being launched. This number of downloads will allow the app to be visible, and will give a signal to the Apple editors to, like, if you see that people are interested in the app and it gets the certain number of downloads in this period, you're going to be included into the what's hot category.
Yeah.
And once you're there, you get a permanent spot where people can find your app and download it, and it will kind of feedback your chart on the top 3 or top 8. And you should really understand this mechanics and be ready to, like I said, you do spend like 60-70% of your budget at this period, but be ready to allocate more budget later, because it is an important point. You should do this on its launch, but don't think of it just like it's going to be the end of story.
Yeah, and as you said before, is that it's much easier to ride the momentum than to restart. So you never want to see your launch take off, plummet, and then have to restart that from zero, from nothing.
Zero.
You don't want to do that. So what you're saying is a concentrated spend, 60 to 70% of your dollars spent around the launch, but then make sure you have enough. So as you start to kind of peak and see yourself in decline, to be able to give yourself another little boost up so that you can extend that runway to get in front of your users or the potential users for longer in the app stores.
Right. The best analogy would be flying.
Yeah.
You're taking off. You're not going to expect them to shut off your engine and go down, right?
It's a great analogy, exactly. Whew, we've taken off. Shut her down, right? That's yeah. You don't want to do that. You don't want to reach 33,000 feet and then that's not the job. The job is to get to the other end. Okay, That's a great analogy, Art. That's great. All right, so I've monopolized your entire afternoon, my entire morning. Where should we send people to get more information about you? I know you got some great case studies on your website. Should we just send them to ComboApp.com?
Yeah, pretty much. You can send them to ComboApp.com or find us on Facebook, which will be facebook.com/Facebook. ComboApp. You will find, you will see our personal side at the company. Lots of photos which will show who we are in person. Certainly on Twitter as ComboApp, and slideshare.com/ComboApp. You will find more than just case studies. We are publishing regular papers about the app marketing, about things you should do to be successful.
Amazing, amazing. So go to ComboApp.com starters, and then follow these social channels. SlideShare is a unique thing. It drives a lot of traffic for a lot of people, and I love the fact that you're leveraging that. And do you think you can use SlideShare for your app marketing? Is that?
If it's something you should think about it. If you can create a good, an interesting paper that will highlight the topic in the team in which your app brings something new on the market, it can be a good strategy. I've seen people are doing precisely this on this SlideShare. And don't forget about LinkedIn.
No, don't forget about LinkedIn.
No.
I leverage that. That's a good.
It's must do.
So you've got LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, SlideShare, Facebook, your own website, email marketing as well. Obviously, build a mailing list. Is that a good piece that you should be doing as well?
Yep, but not right now. Right now, we're not collecting. We're pretty much good with the amount of reviews. The amount of traffic we're getting from LinkedIn profile, the amount of traffic we're getting from SlideShare, and we're collecting leads like you've said, the SlideShare tool is pretty useful. So you can publish your papers. You see how much of them being downloaded, how much clicks they generated, and you can collect leads and basically continue your conversation with them.
I love it. Well, Art, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time, your insight, your advice. Look, we'll send people to ComboApp.com for more information, then they can find you on all the other social channels. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
For those of you who are watching, listening, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, thank you for doing so. I know that there was obviously some great advice here from Art. Go and start to implement. If you have any questions, please reach out, rob@untether.tv. You can leave a comment wherever you found this, and I will I will actually respond to you. If you have any questions, please reach out, and I will respond as well. If you have any questions for Art, I'll make sure that he gets them as well. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on untether.tv. Thanks, Art.